All right, let's get right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a step-by-step walk through the chronological roadmap of a Jural case. If you already know your way around state assemblies, peacekeeping, and Jural assemblies, well, you've got all the puzzle pieces. Now, we're going to see exactly how they snap together. We are looking at the complete end-to-end process of how a real case actually flows through this entire framework. We're going to completely demystify the system by tracing a case from the absolute beginning. So our roadmap covers 6 main steps: filing an initial review, the grand jury review, the living court trial, deliberation and verdict, resolution and records, and finally, accountability and summary. Let's jump in. Starting with Section 1, filing an initial review. How does a local conflict actually, escalate into a formal case within the assembly? To make this really concrete, we're going to follow a practical example right out of our source materials. Imagine an American state national landowner who rents a house to a man or woman. But then, unfortunately, the renter suffers an injury, their car breaks down, and on top of all that, they actually lose their job. Since they have no financial means, they just stop paying rent. So the landowner takes action to evict them for trespass. It's a tough, real-world situation, right? Let's see how the system handles it. And this brilliantly illustrates the pre-court escalation path, because before anyone even sets foot in a courtroom, there's a very clear 3-step procedure. It kicks off with Step 1, generating a witness testimony in the form of an affidavit, along with a criminal claim and a notice of liability. If that doesn't resolve things, we move to Step 2, an invitation to work things out with the Assembly Ombudsman. And only if that fails do we reach Step 3, which is filing the formal claim of trespass with a court clerk. Now, looking closer at Step 2, the parties are invited to an ombudsman office for arbitration. The goal here is to see if the dispute can be settled peacefully, well before court intervention is even required. Think of it as a vital pressure release valve for the whole system. The options here are pretty straightforward. Agree to the session and find a documented resolution, file a counterclaim, or just take no action at all. If no action is taken, or if the arbitration completely fails, the claimant gathers all their evidence from these steps and moves ahead to file a new case. Which brings us to Section 2, the grand jury review. So if arbitration fails and the claim is officially filed, we move right into this absolutely crucial phase of investigation. What's truly fascinating here is how the grand jury is actually defined, drawing its historical authority from documents going all the way back to the 1215 Magna Carta. It acts as a fully independent investigative body. I mean, it's not a tool of the prosecutor or the judiciary, not at all. It's really the enforcement body of the people, specifically designed to keep authorities in check and figure out if a crime actually occurred in the first place. Now, it's absolutely vital to understand the difference here between our two juries. It can get confusing. But basically, the grand jury listens to the allegations, does the heavy lifting of investigating, and decides if there's enough evidence to even present charges. They'll issue either indictments for foreign or federal citizens or presentments for state nationals. The trial jury, on the other hand, comes in much later to actually hear the law and the facts during a trial, and they render the final verdict. So back to our landlord-renter scenario, if the grand jury conducts its review and finds, yes, there is sufficient cause regarding this trespass claim, they will issue what's known as a presentment. This document is essentially the formal key that unlocks the door to an actual trial. Moving on to Section 3, the living court trial. The second the presentment is issued, the case formally enters this trial phase. Now, the living court relies on some very specific officers to impartially manage the administrative mechanics of the whole thing. The justice is there to ensure due process and manage the flow of the court. But, and this is a huge point, they do not rule on facts. That is strictly the jury's job. Meanwhile, the clerk is processing the paperwork, the bondsman clears participants, and the record keeper is there to secure the official logs. Everyone has a very specific lane. Once the justice calls the court to order and hits record, the trial follows a really strict order of operations. First up, the claimant, that's our landowner, speaks and presents recorded facts, simply because the burden of proof is on them. Next, any optional witnesses can step up to testify. After that, the accused, our renter, gets to speak and explain their actions and the overall circumstances they're facing. And throughout this beautifully structured testimony, it's not just a passive listening experience for everyone else. Both the accused and the trial jury have the opportunity to actively engage. They can ask clarifying questions of literally anyone speaking. This is to make sure everyone has a total, complete grasp of the facts before moving a single step forward. All right, Section 4, Deliberation and Verdict. Once all that presentation of evidence wraps up, the spotlight shifts entirely over to the trial jury. The jurors retreat, and the jury lead steps up to take charge of keeping order in the room. They evaluate all those facts side by side. So in our scenario, they have to weigh the renter's sudden job loss against the landowner's inherent property rights. They're asking questions like, did actual harm occur? Was unlawful pressure applied? The whole goal here is to sift through all that evidence and come to a solid agreement on the findings. When the jury finally reaches a unanimous decision, they head back into the living court. The justice will ask if they've reached a verdict. Assuming they have, the jury lead hands over their written findings, and the justice executes the pronouncement, which honestly is just the formal reading of the jury's final decision straight into the court record. Next up is Section 5, Resolution and Records. The trial itself might be over, but the system's administrative work, yeah, that's definitely not over. Immediately upon that pronouncement, the trial recording is stopped. The justice adjourns the court, and the bondsman steps in right away to officially seal the case documents and securely hand off the evidence. This is where the administrative gears really start turning. The clerk takes those sealed documents straight from the bondsman and gets to work preparing the final orders for the justice to sign. Copies are quickly made for the record keeper to lock away in the permanent archives. And finally, those official orders are mailed out, usually via registered mail with a return receipt, or they're delivered directly by a sheriff courier to both the claimant and the accused. And that brings us to Section 6, Accountability and Summary. We have literally gone from a simple, everyday conflict over rent all the way to a securely archived court order. By breaking down these mechanics, we can clearly see how every single officer, committee, and juror plays a profoundly vital role in this whole process. As our final takeaway, understanding the complete process helps members see how justice, accountability, and due process work together within the Assembly framework. But it leaves us with a pretty important question. Now that you know exactly how the system works to protect the people, how are you going to participate in it? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning and keep learning.